As a supermodel, actress, and health expert, I've traveled the world, and I have learned that no two people share the same story. My name's Carol Alt, and in my living room, you'll hear the stories that have shaped some of the most successful people in their industries. Welcome to Carol Alt's Living Room. From designing the world's most expensive shoes on the red carpet to the heels in every woman's closet, this man's shoes have become synonymous with comfort and fit all around the world. I'm joined today by the one and only Stuart Weitzman for Carol Alt's Living Room. Stuart,
here I am.
So happy to have you here.
You can't imagine how happy I am.
We have such a long history together too, so we have some fun anecdotes. But I'm going to take you way back to the very beginning when you were a twinkle in your dad's eye.
Oh, wow.
Talk to me about your dad. Your shoe design didn't come from nowhere.
No, it didn't come out of the air. My father was a terrific artist, actually. And to make money, while in college, he started to sketch shoes.
But why shoes? Like, what made him?
He met someone who had a shoe factory. It was the Old I. Miller Company. And he drew shoes for them and paid for his way. And he was good at it. And I guess that's why he stayed in it.
And so when you were growing up, he had his own shoe company called Seymour Shoes.
Yeah, Mr. Seymour was the brand. It was in Haverhill, Mass., outside of Boston. I did work there for a couple of years, although unfortunately he passed away when I was a young kid.
Oh, how old were you when he passed away?
I was only 23, just a year out of college. But you grow up in a shoe family or any fashion family, and you have it all the time, from age 8 on.
You were born during World War II.
Yeah, right when it began, actually.
Right.
July, yeah.
Yeah, so you lived your first few years were during World War II. But how
I knew nothing of it, of course, as a 1 and 2, 3-year-old.
But how did that affect your childhood as you were growing older? You certainly had the repercussions of that.
Well, it was the Holocaust that affected my growing up more than anything, because it was so personal to my heritage and people that we knew who were killed during it. But when you're 7, 8, 10 years old, those things, at least in my case, they pass and they don't define your life. Really what defined my life was my parents, who had a good idea on how to raise me.
You started designing for your dad at 19.
I did. I made him one shoe.
One shoe.
And he bronzed it for me. He sold it. He put it in the line and he sold it. And I know now, I've known for many years, that shoe did not deserve to be in the collection. It wasn't that good.
That's sweet, though.
But he wanted to encourage me, and he sold it. And it's the first shoe I ever made, and I have it as a replica in bronze.
You don't call it designing, though. You call it engineering.
And it's my hobby, so I do it all the time. I think I never added it up, and I never thought about it directly, but when asked, like you just have, probably 50% of everything I've done for my collections in a creative way has been engineering, and the other half has been designing. And I think when it's a product that has to work and function, you can't have one without the other.
But you didn't want to be a shoe engineer. What did you want to do?
I actually was at the Wharton School, which is part of Penn.
Did you know Trump back then?
Fortunately, he came the year I graduated.
Okay, so you steered clear.
But I know his legend there. It's come out.
I bet.
And I actually was a judge on one of his trumped up, to pardon the pun, Miss Universe contests, so I got to know him even a little better there.
Can I tell you something? I think we all have been on his Miss Universe. Even I went to Moscow for the Miss Universe.
And at Penn, I did summer interns at Goldman Sachs. That's where I was going to go. I planned to spend my career on Wall Street. I was going to break the bank,
You want to be a financier.
Business was in my mind, and a stroke of luck or change or fate turned me back to the shoe industry.
Well, what was that stroke of luck or change or fate?
Well, there was a young man my age, a friend of mine, whose father had a shoe factory. And he did comment to me that, my dad's a great shoemaker, but he never designs his shoes. He buys ideas from the outside, as many companies would. maybe you should sketch some shoes from them, because I was very good at drawing and sketching, and I do scenes for shows in school, etc. You know, I never drew shoes, but hey, they seemed simple enough. And I did about 20 sketches, exactly 20 sketches for him, and was invited by my friend to dinner at their house. They were from Brooklyn. Presented them on the table, and he picked the first one up, and he said, "Who'd you copy this from?" Well,
what a compliment.
Yeah, I immediately thought, that is it that good? And then I thought, oh boy.
Oh, maybe he stole it. I
Or
thought
he
thought I
doesn't.
stole
He
it.
doesn't think I can be creative, and I told him the truth that I didn't. I drew it based upon other shoes in his collection. You know, you kind of have to design into a customer's market. I wasn't going to design things that didn't look like.
Well, did you know that
his.
intuitively back then? Because
His son gave me a catalog of what his shoes were, and I drew within that. And then he kind of nodded, put it up to the light, and said, "I see some heavy lines here. This looks like it was traced." I said, "Gee, sir, I really didn't come here to sell you sketches, and if they're not right, but I didn't trace it. It was my idea." And I started to scoop them up, and he took that sketch and he tore it up. He made a ball out and threw it on the floor. For about 15 seconds, you know the expression, you can hear a pin drop, right? And then he picked up another one. What's he going to do with this one?
he's going to tear them all up.
No, he actually flipped the paper to the blank side. Draw that for me again. And I did. And he said, "I'll give you $20 a sketch." That was $380. Hey, my tuition at Penn was $3,900 for the year. I just made $380 in a half hour. It still bothers me he didn't pay me for the one he tore up, by the way.
Oh, he didn't.
And no, he only paid me for 19.
I was thinking, you're a financier. You should have negotiated
But
and
I
said,
was
I
happy,
want 10 cents a shoe.
I just thought, I'm going to try this for a while and see what happens. And I did go to work for my brother.
What did your brother do?
He had a shoe factory that he took over when my dad passed away. He was a lot older than me. And I was good at it. Or at least you ladies thought I was, so that's where I stayed.
So your brother took over for your father when your father passed away.
Yeah.
And then you guys sold that shoe factory. Why?
Well, we had to leave America and go to Europe. The industry was closing.
The shoe industry?
Oh yeah, there were the little
What year was this that women didn't want shoes?
No, they wanted shoes, but they wanted European shoes. And Europe made better shoes. And the workers had matured, their children didn't want any part of it in America, and we couldn't find people to keep it going for us. Stitchers and cutters, they were, the kids were going into other industries. And we found a company that was an American stock exchange company, which is the predecessor to NASDAQ, and they took me to Europe, to Spain, bought a factory for me to make my collection in. And I worked for them for a bunch of years.
Well, how did they find out about you?
Well, we approached them.
You approached them?
Yeah, said, you know.
With your brother?
Yeah, my brother and I, they were doing well. It was called Caressa. They were doing well, and they didn't have better grade footwear. They only had medium to low end, and I proposed a higher price division. And my brother went to run their lower price shoe factories, and I went to create a new division. There were no factories that were extending leases, remaining. We expected, and articles were written, that the entire American shoe industry would be gone by mid-70s. Actually, it ended in 1971, I think the last factory. And everyone was in Europe. China didn't exist at the time. So they were in Spain and Italy, a little bit France. And I joined them.
Did you see Kinky Boots by chance?
Oh yeah, that's a little bit my story.
That's kind of that story, right? You're trying to save their shoe factory. And then you had Mr. Stuart Weitzman for Mr. Seymour shoes.
Not yet. Still Mr. Seymour.
So first Mr. Seymour.
Mm-hmm.
And then Stuart.
Then my contract ended, and I said,
that's why.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
going to do this myself. And they didn't want to
Part
lose
with you.
their creator, so they said, what would make you happy? And I said, I'm the designer. I want credit for what I'm doing. You now have the Mr. Seymour brand. We sold it to you. Okay, let's put them together, and we'll each own our own. And I'm sure they knew eventually that was a mistake.
So did you buy back?
I didn't need Mr. Seymour, and
right.
I owned
And you
Stuart
own your own
Weitzman.
name.
So I used their company that I was in business with to help create the beginning of a brand name.
So what year was this?
This was 1977 through 82. We had the joint name on the shoe.
Right.
And then in 83, I started my own, and it really went worldwide in 1986.
So in 1983, you're now making your own Stuart Weitzman shoes. How did you raise the money to do that?
Remember, I went to the Wharton School.
Okay, well, that's why I want to know your secrets.
I never needed to raise any money. I looked at all the self-financing possibilities, and I decided that they will work. I could convince factories to give me 90-day terms. I didn't have to pay for 90 days. I would only sell to the retailers that were very well rated so that they would pay me in 30 days. Shipping time was about a week. So I pretty much got the money to run the business from the customers before I had to pay for the shoes.
So basically, you were making the shoes, selling them, and not paying for all that property until
90
after
days
you
later.
got paid.
That's right.
So that's how.
And if you I think anyone in or out of business would realize that when you sell a product, it's for more than you bought it.
Of course.
So I was getting
some
more
margin.
money from the customers than I needed to give back to the factories. And then I bought the factories. That made it simple.
So you bought your factory. So Spain played a very big part in your career and your life.
Yeah, it's and I
Habla español.
Muy bien,
Ah,
hablo
I
muy
bet.
bien, and I have a big chamber of my heart for Spain. Believe me, I do. I'm doing a lot of work there today to give back, so to speak.
Oh, that's nice. What do you do there to give back?
Well, I've some amazing caves were discovered in the north of Spain that are very prehistoric, and they're unique, really unique in the world, because they were sealed by either landslides or earthquakes, and the people who lived there were enclosed in their tomb, and nobody since that earthquake or landslide ever went in to destroy what was there. Whereas most caves have been invaded by succeeding generations and ages
They
of
were
people.
disrupted.
Yeah, these were not. And 4 years ago, Spain decided they would like to excavate these caves, and they sought people or funds to do it, and I adopted these caves. And I'm doing the excavation of them and the mapping of them. It's called La Garma, is the name of the cave complex, and it's quite unbelievable. I mean, there are lions who have died in there that are still in their lying down position, of course bones only, that have never been touched, and they would not be there if people could have gotten into that cave. And 200 people who live there, and all the tools. And I'm gonna ask you a question. Can I do that?
Okay, of course.
You've seen pictures of
my living room. Enjoy.
You've seen pictures of cave paintings.
Yes.
How do you think they were painted?
That's a good question because, I mean, back in the 1800s, it was eggshells.
Yeah, well, this is like 40,000 years
I would
or
have to think
50,000 years.
minerals.
That's good.
Stone,
That's good.
sand, dirt.
That's good. How do you think they applied it?
All right, well, first, off the top of my head, I probably would have thought finger painting. But
Some of that was done.
yeah, but
Very
some
little.
of the finer stuff, maybe they took animal hair or animal tails or...
They blew the iron dust mixed with oil through a straw, and they painted with a straw.
I feel like I should have known that.
No, no one would think that. And how do we know that? Because
Would you have fallen out of your chair
I
if
would have
did?
fallen out of my chair, because when they showed me how they realized that it was done this way, there were hundreds of vulture legs with the marrow gone, and a vulture leg is perfectly straight.
Right, straight.
And they made straws out of the vulture leg.
Yeah, I guess that would have been the next question. How'd they make the straws that they were blowing?
And they used
Stuff they
vulture
find in
legs.
nature.
It was quite unbelievable how inventive people can be when they have to think of something. And the DNA of those inhabitants, some go back 100,000 years, is identical to yours and mine. So
We're all connected.
we are, and we have not, physically we have not really evolved. Mentally, of course, we have.
Let's hope so. Some of us maybe not. You also support a museum there.
Yeah, we're trying to build, and it's pretty well along, the plans are pretty well along, a Jewish Spanish history museum. And there are two reasons that that would be a great idea. First of all, it's going to be in Madrid, and if you think of where the Plaza Hotel is, that's how lucky we are to have gotten a spot like that. I mean, it's perfect. And the Jewish history of Spain is a 700-year love relationship.
Oh, that's
the longest
great.
that the Jewish people have ever lived anywhere but Israel.
Right.
And it was very high level. Like six of
terrific.
the cabinet ministers of Isabella's court were Jewish people, the astronomers, the treasurers, and tax people, and et cetera. So it was a very high level of education. And when she and her church decided we don't want them here anymore, and that was the Inquisition, kicked them out, so many countries of the world benefited from them. And that history has not been told in Spain. There is no Jewish museum of that stature, whereas you can find in Paris, somewhere in Belgium, in Italy, in Rome, Milan, both have them, London. Even Berlin has Libeskin's new museum. There are Jewish museums all over the world, and the country that had the biggest population and the greatest history doesn't have one. So they're excited about it. I would say Spain is very excited about it. The mayor bought into it, and
well, it's always nice to be the
great.
first to do stuff.
And this
you
will
have
be
a lot
fun.
of firsts that we're going to get to as well.
So that's my Spanish connection.
That's your Spanish. So now you've started your company. You bought back the factories in 1986, 87, and now is this when you really started focusing on Stuart Weitzman shoes?
To build a brand.
Okay.
I realized that if I just made a product, even if it was great, someone else might offer it for 50 cents less, and there's no loyalty to the product. And I decided I wanted to build a brand. And I didn't want to do it in the traditional way, the textbook way, the way you would expect someone to invest to build a brand. So everything that we did, everything, I mean, if we had a project, it was always like, okay, how do we get there without walking that line, some other line?
You wanted to walk
I wanted
your own
because
unique way.
You know what that ended up doing? It was a bit by accident how we started, because it was really the $1 million sandal that
I was going to ask you about
referred
that.
to.
Talk about your $1 million sandal.
That was different, and it created tremendous publicity for our company when I was very young in this fashion world. And it was so successful that from then on, we always would try to do something in a different way. It created, you can't imagine how much more press than just doing it the normal way. And that's what we did. That's why I mean, they're right through the whole story, from hiring Kate Moss, that no shoe company would ever dream of doing, to hiring Mario Testino and James Franco, and to opening stores on the biggest streets of the world next to Chanel. Shoe stores were not ever on those streets. And I said, well, they're going to notice us then
Now
if we
there
go
will
there.
be.
Yeah, and if we go to a side street like the rest of them, we're just another store on the street. But if we're next to Chanel or Prado, Saint Laurent, well, who is this guy that
Who has the courage to open up a shoe store
on
next
that,
to Chanel?
at paying that rent too?
Paying that rent. The $1 million shoe. Why was it a $1 million shoe? What was so special about this shoe?
Well, of course, it had all the diamonds. You know,
Ah, had $1 million worth of diamonds.
Yeah.
How many?
Yeah. 464. Kwiat diamonds, the people who own Fred Leighton. You want to see something in your life, if you could ever see their vault, you would die.
Oh, really?
I'm telling you. You can't imagine. I mean, you know, I don't wear diamonds, but when I saw that vault, whoa.
You became a diamond lover.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I asked him, how much you insure this for? He wouldn't tell me.
I bet.
But I knew him, and he agreed to, you know, whatever press he might get out of it. He said, okay, we'll make you what you want. And I designed a beautiful series of ornaments to ornament the shoe. And he executed it in platinum settings. And we even put a platinum sole on the shoe.
Oh, was that slippery? That's the first thing I think of. She had walked down a red carpet, right? You had.
Yeah, she wore, and at events on Joan Rivers' show as well. I mean, believe
So
we got
who wore it? Who wore it for
Laura Elena Herring. And
Right.
that is part of the story of doing things out of the ordinary.
you? Okay.
That really was a great idea. If we put that shoe on a queen, she's already got her crown. I figured she's not going to pay attention to that shoe. She wants to win her Academy Award. And you had Kidman and Halle Berry, and a bunch of wonderful actresses up that year. But if we put it on a princess, so rather than looking for a queen, we decided, let's find a princess, someone who might think that this could be her Cinderella slipper. And Laura Elena Herring and Naomi Watts, both two unknown actresses at the time, were stars, co-stars in Mulholland Drive, a very surreal movie by a surreal director named David Lynch. And he was nominated for Best Director for that film. So they were both going. And it was by chance we picked Laura. No one knew whose career would blossom.
Of course.
And it didn't really matter
Nobody has a
because
crystal ball.
it was the event. And she was so excited about wearing that shoe that she took her $25,000 Giorgio Armani gown and she folded the front up and pinned it. And it was now cut this way.
Right.
So that her shoes would show. And she, now you
I
have
think I would have done the same thing, Stuart. You put $1
I will tell
million
you,
pair of shoes on
Armani
my
never
feet.
made her or her stylist another dress. I can understand that.
I can too, but still.
But that wasn't my issue. And luck comes into play, but I always say you have to be there to be lucky, right?
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. You have to be, you
Or
have
as
to
my
play.
ex used to say, it's better to be lucky than good.
But you have them both, it works.
It works
And in this
great.
case, she was walking on the carpet with her boyfriend. That's another story that helped us. And the mouthpiece is interviewing, I think it was Angelina Jolie. You know who I mean
Yes,
by the mouthpiece,
yes.
right? Old Joan, the
Joan
wonderful
Rivers,
Joan.
yeah.
And she stopped the interview like in mid-sentence and saw Laura and said, Laura, get over here. Everyone wants to see that Stuart Weitzman $1 million sandal.
Wow.
400 newspapers had that picture on the front page or the front page of the
Thank
fashion
you,
section.
Joan.
Unbelievable. And every better grade store in the world now knew we existed. And that's when I decided I'm going to go around the world.
With
And
this shoe.
No,
Without
because
the
they
shoe.
knew who we were. And when, you know, it's association, right?
Oh, you mean you were going to bring, I thought you were going to travel around the world.
No,
You-
we were going to
you were
bring our
gonna bring
collection
your brand around
and
the
open
world.
up in all the cities. And to get a wonderful store, let's say a Bergdorf in Berlin, to come see you, if they don't know who you are, they don't have time. But they associated with Stuart Weitzman. He was the red carpet guy. Yeah, let's see what he makes. So they all came, and we opened up a market twice as big as America. From then on, we had to just keep doing it right. So that's
Well,
how it started.
And you have been doing it right. So, but that's the start. That's where you feel you got your
Yeah.
biggest push
That,
ever.
I call that my tipping point. And the famous book of the stories of various tipping points, if he knew our story, I know he would have put it in there.
Absolutely right. How dare he forget you?
And it also convinced me, I didn't need much convincing by then, but it assured me that shoes and women are something special.
Like peanut butter and jelly.
Even better, because Laura was wearing a diamond on her neck called the Habsburg diamond. And that diamond had never been set in jewelry. It was worth $75 million. It was an
And
heirloom.
nobody cared.
They didn't even ask her about it.
Yeah, because like,
It was
you know,
all
it's
the
just a
shoe.
necklace. Come on, this is $1 million worth of diamonds on a pair. Probably more, right? I mean,
We had to give it a good number, you know, so
yeah.
it had the right handle.
But at the same time, it's not just about your design or diamonds on it or whatever. You take great pride, and I even saw it in your face as we were sitting here before we were filming, about your fit,
Yeah.
your comfort and fit. How did you zero in on that would be a really important?
I think that's my business school background. I want to tell you something that's so obvious people don't think about. What do you think it costs us to get a new customer like you, first time, to come into our store and buy a pair of shoes?
Well, I'm probably uniquely different because they were in all the studios with us. But an average person off the street,
First
couple $100,000?
First you'd have to think of how could we ever calculate that.
Well, oh, okay, yeah. How would you calculate that?
We added up all of our advertising costs,
Right.
promoting 6 shoes for the season,
Divided by how many new people?
bought any of those 6 shoes. And it was $8,000.
That's it.
Well, we got a lot of customers, so it divided it up very well.
Right.
What do you think it cost me the second time that woman came in? A year later or 6 months later?
Nothing.
You know, Carol, I've always been both my businessman and my creative director, so I combined the two. I didn't have to have a meeting to decide how we're going to run the business side of this group of shoes. And that was the practical answer that I came up with. I have to make it work so that you become another ambassador for Stuart Weitzman instead of a critic.
You also made a decision to do a low-end price point and a high-end price point, so that you're basically, if you think about it, recession-proof.
You know, there's something about a higher end product that gives it a natural prestige. And if I wanted to do something else pretty much unique, and that was to conquer the celebrity world, I needed something made as well as it could possibly made with the highest grade products and image. And I couldn't, you know, couldn't get a model like you to wear an $80 shoe. You know, in those
Well, maybe
days,
in the studio if you were paying me a lot, but certainly not on a red carpet.
yeah, if Blahnik or Charles Jourdain's shoes were 400, and mine had to be at least 300-400. You know, it just had to be there. But we decided, let's set up a whole business for celebrities, and nobody ever did that. They would just hope they'd get a shoe on someone, and often it was never even mentioned because, you know, your
They
hair,
talk about the gown,
your hair,
the
the
necklace,
gown,
the
right, and
jewelry,
it stops at the ankles, and that was the end of it. But we decided, no, there's a lot of worth in this, and my first credit, which I had forgotten about, but it came up, unfortunately, last week when Aretha Franklin died. There was a picture in all the fashion magazines of her accepting her first award, American Music Association Singer of the Year. And she is carrying in her hand a pair of shoes I custom made for her for that event, and the label is Stuart Weitzman for Mr. Seymour. Right there, I thought, that's the first credit. I remember how excited I was, and it convinced me I have to get more of these girls.
That's kind of a very cute story, except you got to be careful that they didn't say, oh, my shoes hurt so bad they had to take them off.
No, she actually promoted people who did favors for her. She was a lovely lady, wrote thank you notes. I mean, most of them don't, but
yeah, I know.
you know,
Chivalry
there
is
are
gone,
prima donnas and all.
No class.
But that was, and from then on out, we set up first a showroom in a hotel in LA, then a store on Rodeo Drive. Again, the first shoe store in between Vuitton and Chanel. It was like, we're going to pay this money. Think of it as an ad in Elle and Vogue, you know.
No, not just, you mean a store that solely represented shoes, because Chanel, of course, had their shoes, and Vuitton had their shoes.
Well, to sell a one-product item that's not that expensive, with that rent, you don't expect to cover the costs of running it. You have to justify it for some other reason, and it paid off. And I mean, even like the shoe you're wearing, it is the go-to shoe.
My nudes.
Yeah, you're nudists.
My nudists. I got news for you. I have seen these ripped off by literally every designer. Almost if you don't have a nudist in your repertoire of shoe designs, you're not a designer these days.
Well, that shoe is unique for two reasons. First of all, it is the most copied sandal in the history of the shoe industry by those who think they know. Secondly, it is the first shoe that designers who sell product more expensive than ours have copied it, because it is a no-no to copy someone who's in your world or even less expensive.
Right.
You just wouldn't, it's an insult to yourself. But this shoe had such power in the marketplace, and women wanted it. And if, I won't mention any name, but if you were a so-and-so loyal customer, they had to have that shoe for you because you.
Otherwise, you'd go to Stuart Weitzman to get it.
But they don't want to because they're a loyal customer maybe for that brand. So they were forced to copy this idea.
Well, you know, they say that copying is the greatest form of flattery in the world. How did you feel about this? I mean, I know you understood it was happening, but
there are a lot of things I know I remember from my parents, but one from my dad was when I was copied on one of the shoes that I made for my brother. Really, really ticked me off. And he said, if they don't copy you, son, you're not doing well enough. And that's true. They're not going to copy the losing shoes of the marketplace. So you get to live with
the
it.
front runner.
And what we learn after a while is that our customer and the market that we're catering to, they want the original. If there's a shoe for half this price made by a brand they don't wear, they're not going to buy it.
Well, there's also another issue, and again, that goes back to the comfort and the fit.
Yeah, that you can't copy.
Right. The first time I saw this nudist, I thought, no, I don't want to do that because I've had shoes before that squeeze my toes like that.
Mm-hmm.
They hurt after a while. I can't walk in them. And in fact, my girlfriend Jackie was doing your publicity for a really long time. She said, try the shoe. Just try it. I went, okay, because I was wearing it on a red carpet, and I didn't want to spend a night in painful
Suffering,
shoes.
no.
And I have to tell you, I not only have them in the nude, I have them in silver lame, in gold, in burgundy. I just bought the ones with the bow in the back, which I have a confession to make. I have a little animal charity, and we had an event, and I wore your shoes on a red carpet with the bow in the back. And then I thought these would be a really great donation, a beautiful shoe that was worn on a red carpet by a celebrity. And I donated the shoes to be auctioned off.
Oh, that's cool.
It was one of the pieces that went the highest in the auction.
But you parted with it. Okay.
Well, here's the thing. So I went to give them to her, and I was like, all right, you can have them. Because I thought I could always go get another pair, But I thought this would be really nice because they were on the carpet and had a little bit of a pedigree. And I gave up.
Actually, we started a charity with ladies like you, doing things like you just described. We started about 10 years ago, and I remember the first year. Well, we do a lot of favors with 2 days' notice to get someone the right shoe for a dress change, because it isn't the shoe that an actress will change. It'll be the dress that the stylist wants her to switch out of and into something else. Now the shoe they had planned doesn't work. So there are a lot of favors we have to do, of course, for the publicity that will come from it. But I always felt like, I know they appreciate what we're doing, and I called up Cindy Crawford and asked her if she would design with me for sale as a work of art, not as a commercial product, one shoe to be auctioned off, signed by her with whatever she would like to decorate or paint the shoe with. And I made white satin pumps, high heel, so that it could be treated any way you wanted. You could paint it, you could jewel it, you could cut it up a little bit and make it a different, like a two-piece shoe instead of a one-piece pump. And when she said yes, well, everybody we called said yes. And we raised something like $300,000 for Susan J. Komen breast cancer, and auctioned off shoes that celebrities had made into a work of art. Not worn, made into a work of art, one shoe. Then next year we did singers, and that set our record for one shoe, by the way, Tina Turner's shoe, which she signed 2,000 times. So the whole shoe and the inside and the sole was covered with her name. That went for $16,000 as a work of art. And the next year we wanted men. We thought, why don't we do actors?
Why not?
And hey, Rita Wilson, who had done a shoe for us, was like, Rita, Tom Hanks,
Tom would do it?
he better, or he's not going to have dinner tomorrow night. And we kept doing that. And eventually the industry caught on, as a whole industry. And every October, on QVC, I think it is, many of the companies in our world donate shoes to be sold, and all the money goes to the cancer research for breast and ovarian cancer, the two diseases our customers tend to suffer more than any other. So a lot of good can come out of fashion.
Oh, absolutely, and that's without a doubt. But one of the things I've noticed with you, because it's a personal thing I like to do as well, is I like to be the first in a lot of things.
I think we all do, don't
And
we?
I don't know. Some people just want to follow and make the money, because sometimes the people who are first don't always make the money.
Yeah, they
And
blaze
they get
and then,
stolen from,
yeah.
and people steal the idea, and maybe they do it better because you know what the
Showed
mistakes
the way, yeah.
are, and you show the way, and they come along. So, I was even born on December 1st because I like being first in doing many things. And I've noticed that trait in you, and I think that's why we enjoy each other's company so much, is because we have like minds. We think quite a lot. You, some of the people you have designed for specifically have been huge stars. I know
Yeah.
you designed. Can we drop some names, or do you like to keep
You
it
know
quiet?
what the rules are on television. No, we don't,
Well, you've designed for Beyonce.
Yeah, she
Taylor
needed shoes
Swift.
for their tours, and I tell you why I started to do that. That was after we did the one-off shoes for celebrities and events they needed to go to. These ladies are very challenging and inspiring.
I was going to say, does it ever make you nervous to have to design?
You
for
have
them?
to step up notches because it's out of the norm what they need, so it requires creativity and engineering, and a girl might say she wants it this way on the leg, and you know that we've never seen that because it doesn't function. Now I have to figure out how am I going to make that work,
Who knew
because she's
shoes
going
could
to
be
be
so complicated, right?
well, and a lady wearing it doesn't think about it. It's not her problem to think about it. We're the shoemakers. We have to think that out. So I've enjoyed tremendously and gotten great ideas from inspirations from celebrities. I'm going to give you a great example that is part of my teaching course when I speak at universities. I tell this story. I decided, well, this is a cute story. In my first years in business, say first 10, 15 years in business, I catered to the woman who was, I guess, a bit like my mother and my wife, maybe 40 to 60-year-old woman, because I was very good at fit, and I tried to make them a little bit more fashionable than the traditional good-fitting shoes that were in the marketplace and strong then, just to have my one edge up. And we built a very good business catering to them, school teachers, lawyers, professors, housewives, but that kind of lady. And at a wedding, I'm sitting at a table with people I know, except the daughter of one of the couples. And I introduced myself to her, but she was the only one I didn't know. She said, "Oh, I know your shoes. My mother wears them." I was like a knife in my heart.
That's like when somebody says you still look good.
Well,
They don't get how that hurts.
that was the best thing someone could say to me. I went home, and I remember saying to my wife, Jane, I said,
We have to change something up.
we have to add a market. You can kill yourself if you change.
No, I meant in the business style.
Yeah,
We have to do something different.
Add a market. I want to sell these 18 to 30-year-old girls. And by then, by the way, they were the ones spending the money too.
Well, heck, and by the way, us 50-year-olds still go back and buy the ones that you made for the 18 and 30-year-olds so we can feel young and beautiful
exactly.
and sexy. So.
And they were, I mean, my mother used to take my sister shopping. Now my wife won't buy anything unless my daughters approve it. So it's the world is turned. And I said, okay. And we talked, and I thought, Kate Moss. Kate Moss. Well, Kate Moss didn't want any part of doing shoes. She was already, you can imagine, right? I thought, okay, how am I going to get to Kate Moss? Who's her photographer? That was Mario Testino, who discovered her and photographs her. And he didn't want any part of shoes. He started doing runways. I said, Mario, you can do something no one else has done. Think about that. I mean, everything you're going to do.
It can be a first.
Everything you're going to do from now on, you've done already. But this can be something you've never done. You will start a trend, and they will say Mario started that. You can really help launch a great-looking group of shoes.
What a salesman you are.
And
They're more than just
well,
shoes,
you have to
too.
play to a person's personality,
yeah.
his ego.
Absolutely.
Anyway, Mario thought it would be a good idea, but he wanted to pretty much control it because his name is now going to be. And I wanted that, and I knew he would say, I want to pick the model. And of course, he picked Kate.
Sneaky.
And then
That's great.
reality set in.
Uh-oh.
I hadn't yet created a collection for girls like Kate Moss. So she became my inspiration. And I began to think with my team too, to design shoes for her and
That
the
you
girls
thought
who
she
love
would
her,
wear, right.
that she would wear. I thought, what am I going to put on her in this ad? She wouldn't want to wear any of this. Of course, whatever we give her, she's going to have to, but it won't look right. And the thigh-high boot,
I have every one of them, every color.
I remember bringing it to the shoot and asking her, what do you think of this boot? And she said, well, you try it on. She put it on, went in front of the mirror. You know how your posture
Yes,
changes?
yeah,
And wow.
when you feel amazing in
Right?
the
And
shoe.
like, what do you do with this after the shoot? We put it in our wardrobe for magazines to borrow. If you don't need this one, I'd love it. Do you know how many I pre-ordered before we ever showed it to a customer? A whole season's worth of product. If that were her honest and not paid for reaction, every girl who idolized her is going to want one. And that's what happened.
Well, and
She inspired me, and I have often used my experiences with women to inspire me on something else, because I listen to
lovely.
you.
That's lovely.
I want to know what you want. I don't expect you to design it. That's my job.
Yeah.
But I want to know what you want, and it works.
Well, and in fact, you must have heard me in telepathy-wise, because I was sending you messages, because one of the things that really bothers me about most designers and most shoes is that they're one season and they're out.
No,
And
that's
then
no good.
Right? And if you're wearing them, but you love them, and I'm going to tell you a funny story now. I was wearing a little Prada kitten heel up in Canada, in a department store in Canada. I was walking with my boyfriend, his mom, and his dad, and this little shoe salesman came up to me, a little girl like this, and she saddled up next to me, and she goes, "Oh, I remember those shoes from 2 seasons ago."
like
that.
trying to get you to buy a new one.
Well, like she thought she was insulting me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I know. I just love these shoes because they're such a low heel and they look like little mice in the front and they're just adorable. And it shut her right up, because most people think they can shoe shame you.
Yeah, right.
You're not wearing this year's shoe. The great thing that you did, not just with the nudist, but also with your thigh-high boot, is not just everybody copies it, but every year it's a perennial. So people can't tell, did you
Iconic.
buy it this year, last year?
Right.
They have the year before. They have no idea. They just know that Stuart Weitzman thigh-high boot. They know that Stuart Weitzman nudist shoe. And when everybody's wearing it, of course, they've copied your boot too. And they go, oh, is that a Stuart Weitzman? Oh, no, this is so-and-so. They go, oh, really? Oh, okay. And they look kind of like Stuart Weitzman, so you are ingenious in several ways. Okay, so now you've got all this incredible idea, these incredible shoes. You've done lots of firsts, and you're in 70 countries around the world selling Stuart Weitzman shoes. Your dreams have been realized, and in 2010, you sell your company.
My 2 children, who are my best friends, by the way, my 2 daughters, have their own careers. And neither of them, one could have been maybe even a better designer than I ever was. She's very talented artistically, but she loves to write songs and sing. So that's the career she chose. And the other one, who's a wonderful writer, no inclination for the shoe business. What was I going to do with it? There are 3,000 people involved here who've given
Right.
all
The
their
lives of
lives to
3,000
me,
people.
and the families behind them and all that. Something has to be done. I just can't keep playing poker with God and hope that I'm going to be around for another
let you win a few
300,
times, I gotta say.
yeah, 300 hands. So I found a company.
The Jones Group.
Yeah, I mean, they had Ant Klein, they had the Jones clothing, they
Right.
had Nine West, they had a lot of businesses. They decided they were worth more selling everything off and
Oh.
liquidating than
So they
remaining.
broke it apart and sold it piecemeal.
Yeah, I think the stock was 9 or 10, and they ended up getting $15 per share by selling it all. And there I was now back in the position of, well, now what do I do?
Well, wait. So you were designing for them still,
Yeah,
right?
I was running it,
So you were still running it, still designing for
but
them.
now I have to find another
Now you
home.
have to find another home.
Which came along about a year and a half later, or 2 years later, and that was Coach.
right, which became the Tapestry Group.
Yeah, they have 3 companies now. They have Spade also, us and
Kate
their,
Spade, you and
their Coach brand.
right.
So they changed it to a corporate name, Tapestry, and that's where it is today. And now,
And you sold it for quite a bit. Did you ever think when you started this shoe company that you would? I mean, can we say how much you sold it for?
it's in all the papers. I know it was over close to 600 million,
I think it was
500.
a little bit more than that, wasn't it?
I don't know, whatever it was.
It was quite
gave me and my wife a lot of wonderful things to do
By a lot
with
of
our
shoes
money.
with that.
No, a lot of help to others, actually.
Of course. When you have that much money, you can
You have to.
certainly.
And
give.
I get more pleasure. You can't imagine the
I-
pleasure you can get if you have this money to do good with. Wow, we really enjoy it.
That is so lovely. I have to tell you, because a lot of people just like me, mine, and they can't seem to just relax and give, and that's really lovely. So you sold to the Tapestry Group. Do you design for them still?
I did I made an agreement
Right.
to continue to run the company, be the creative director for 2 years, and then be around as an advisor for another couple. But they did what most corporations do, and maybe they should, and maybe they shouldn't. Time will tell. But they did played the traditional role. The people who were being brought in to replace people like me eventually,
Right.
they need their own people around them. They think they need their own people around them. So they begin to replace, and others go elsewhere because I'm not there anymore. We had such a family-like relationship. And I guess you wouldn't recognize the staff that runs it today, but that's what big companies do when they buy small companies.
So now what do you do with your spare time?
Oh,
As if I don't know.
I have no spare time. Well,
You're in retirement, more or less, right?
I have talked about the museum and caves in Spain.
Right, and
I'm
I thought
also-
of that when you said you have the money now to give and you like to give.
And I'm also trying to finish the development of and the plans for developing a cultural center outside of Boston in the town that had the 300 shoe factories, where my dad had his factory.
Mr. Seymour shoes.
And house my personal collections, one of them of which is on display at the New York Historical Society, as well as my own shoes. So that would be like a base of this, but it's not just a dead museum with a fixed display. They'll be moving in and out, rotating exhibitions, and a place for art students, and it's a pretty cool community. It's about 30 miles from Boston, like White Plains would be maybe, or Scarsdale from New York, and so it's a commuter city today. And when my dad was there, it wasn't, but now they have the train line and the superhighway, and it's become an artistic center. It has a great river through the town that was cleaned up once the mills and factories went. So it's kind of a wonderful place to live. And that's another museum that will take my time and my money.
But you also travel with a coach, so you can play.
Well, I'm a ping pong player.
Yes, you
But
are.
I've always played sports. Tennis in high school and all through college and afterwards. And I decided I'm going to fill up 3 or 4 days a week with my sports. And I got back into tennis and back into ping pong and skiing in the winter. We played ping pong together.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I didn't know you traveled with a
I'm
coach.
not going to advertise the results. It's okay.
I think people know if I'm blushing and I'm holding my head in my hands.
And so that's that's great. I will tell anybody listening, if you can do athletics one way or another, could be running, biking, swimming, aerobic type, or sports, you will never notice your body change. Your mind can go, your heart, I guess, can go too, right? But your muscles and your coordination and your flexibility and your balance.
And do something you enjoy.
And you love it. And I mean, so I do a lot of that. And I'm a teacher, and I love that too. That's maybe as much fun as anything I do. I had a few years to get used to not owning my own shoe company.
Right.
Because I first sold it, then I had to organize a second sale, and it gave me enough time to have that wear off.
Yes.
It wasn't like the person who sells his business and in 2 months, now what do I do?
Yeah, like the day after Christmas,
Yeah.
build up, and then kaboom.
Yeah,
Nothing.
so this took years to execute. And I have found so many other wonderful things to do. My kids now get my attention too. They didn't have that much
Whether
of it
they
before.
want it or not.
No, they want it. Fortunately, they want it.
Well, I so appreciate you coming here and sharing your pearls of wisdom with us here in my living room. And I look forward to seeing what you do in the future.
Okay, and I will keep you informed and let
I
you
would
know.
like that.
And I'm always on top of what you're doing too, because I know it's exciting, and I wish you well in it.
Thank you very much. And thank you guys for joining me in my living room, Carol's living room.